For over a year, we've looked at the ways different businesses and industries make money. We studied the sound of pickleball, traveled back in time with a Tour de France cyclist, and made one vending machine entrepreneur $1 richer. Here's a look back at our hustle that brought you Hustlenomics. What do you get when you cross badminton, ping pong, and tennis? The fastest growing sport in America, pickleball. This is the first time I'm ever watching the game of pickleball, and I am so late to this party. Embarrassing. The popularity of pickleball spiked during the COVID-19 pandemic, and since then, it's exploded even more, turning the heads of some high-profile athletes and investors. But with all that growth, also comes growing pains.
When so many people entered the sport that it was going on for 10 and 12 hours a day. And that's where the sound problems really started to emerge.
So what does it cost to be America's fastest growing sport?
Did you catch that?
And why isn't everyone buying in? The first game of pickleball was actually played on a backyard badminton court in 1965. Today, there are roughly 10,000 known places to play pickleball in America. The states with the most locations? California and Florida.
I play about 3 or 4 days a week in Florida. Here in Pittsburgh, I don't have enough courts. I hope to play this afternoon, though. I think I have 5:30 match.
Meet Bob Unitish, a retired professor of engineering, a USA Pickleball ref, and the founder of Pickleball Sound Mitigation, LLC. More on that last one later. Between 2021 and 2022, the number of picklers in the US doubled, with nearly 9 million people playing the game regularly. And in total, more people played pickleball than basketball, golf, and tennis. So why is pickleball so popular?
You're always playing with new people.
The barrier to entry of the sport is so low.
Doesn't matter the age. I mean, everybody gets along. As a former professional tennis player, totally addicted. I've gone to the dark side.
Today, I'm in the other pickleball hotspot of the country, California. More specifically, Newport Beach, where the Association of Pickleball Players, known as the APP, is hosting its largest professional tournament ever. There are more than 1,400 players at this tournament. Pros, amateurs, family, friends are here, and then there's me. I grew up not far from these courts when they were just tennis courts. But developers in Orange County and around the world are becoming increasingly aware of the economic value of pickleball. In Florida, investors have poured close to $200 million into 15 private indoor pickleball clubs. And entertainment venues combining food and sport are on the rise. Chicken and Pickle plans to open 7 new locations in 2023 and 2024.
I think people are thinking this is worth betting on. This could grow to be a major sport. It could have major advertising revenue in time.
For a professional sport that's not even 3 years old, Major League Pickleball is already backed by a Fortune 500 company. Anheuser-Busch purchased its own team for an undisclosed but estimated 7 figures. This year, 16 pro teams will compete in 6 tournaments nationwide for more than $2 million in cash prizes. For context, that's roughly the same amount awarded to professional cyclists in the Tour de France, a race that's been around for more than a century. This is so much more intense than I thought it was going to be. I understand why people love this sport. But pickleball is also in a pickle because of this. The sound of the ball hitting the paddle, aka the plock. Okay, that plock sound is loud, but it kind of adds to the energy of the sport. Like, I see why in the moment it makes it more exciting, but I also see how it could be really, really annoying if you're not playing the game.
The game naturally starts out with some physics that are fairly loud compared to other sports.
So exactly how loud is pickleball? Almost as loud as a vacuum cleaner, according to a study by Bob Unitish and Yale University. Plus, the Pwak has the same musical pitch as the backup alarm on a trash truck. The solution? Sound barriers like the one Bob helped design for his own community in Florida can knock off 10 to 15 decibels, but they can also cost tens of thousands of dollars. Another solution? Better paddles.
This is our CX14. It's all carbon fiber made.
This one's, makes some noise, but it's not a noisy racket.
This was,
I think, $230.
I have a set of golf clubs, and every golf club costs that much. And it lasts typically for years.
And that low cost of entry, along with a low physical barrier, means pickleball could have a very long life ahead of it, and a shot at becoming an Olympic sport.
Pickleball fundamentally is a great way to get exercise. And if you find an inexpensive way where it's fun and you think you're getting good at it, I think the growth of pickleball is unlimited.
What do live crabs, used cars, and Moe Shandon champagne all have in common? They're sold in vending machines around the world, along with some other interesting items. But most of us are more familiar with machines like this one. People keep walking by asking me if this machine works. We're gonna find out. I walk down this street in San Francisco a lot, but I never noticed this vending machine until recently. As reported by The Hustle, running a vending machine business comes with its share of hurdles, starting with finding the right machine and the right location. So how much money can a vending machine actually make? And who collects it?
And there you guys go. That's how much money was in the soda machine.
This is Jaime Ibanez, a YouTuber and vending machine entrepreneur. 5 years ago, he bought his first vending machine for $2,500.
I started my vending machine business right out of high school. I invested all of my savings, and it was a huge risk, but I knew back then that you had to take risk, especially if you wanted to start a business.
Within just a few months, Jaime says that machine was bringing in about $800 a month.
It blew my mind. It motivated me even more to go out there and buy more machines and put them on more locations, and that's exactly what I did.
Today, Jaime and his girlfriend Lisabeth own and operate 47 machines across the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area, a small fraction of the nearly 5 million machines in the U.S. As of April 2023, the U.S. vending machine market was worth $10 billion.
I talked to some vending operators who earned up to $8,000 a year per machine.
Based on his research of vending machine purchases made in the U.S. between 2009 and 2012, Dr. Capps found that regional locations played a huge role in consumer behavior.
Those in the Midwest and the South were more likely to purchase than you, Noel, in San Francisco in the Pacific or West region.
There's no card reader on this machine, but thankfully, I was taught to always carry some cash. Thanks, Dad. The average wholesale unit of a can of Coke will sell for about 52 cents at Sam's Club. This vending machine owner is looking at a 48% profit margin with every can of Coke purchased. Not bad. Nationwide, most machines are stocked with the basics: candy, chips, and soda. And despite being plastered with Pepsi and Coke logos, the majority have no affiliation to big brands. That's because the vending machine biz requires a lot of moving parts, so it's better suited to smaller operators like Jaime and this auto shop in San Francisco, which I learned has owned and operated this machine since the 1980s. Across his 47 machines, Jaime does $28,000 in total revenue per month. That's roughly $360,000 a year. Still, operating costs are steep. According to a survey by Hustle writer Zachary Crockett, the biggest cash burners for vending machine operators in 2020 were insurance, location commissions, and credit card transaction fees. But even with half of the money going back into the business to cover things like gas, payroll, inventory, and warehouse rent, Jaime's net income is still more than the median household income in San Francisco. 1,300 miles west in San Diego, California, Quinn Miller operates 57 machines that bring in $30,000 a month, according to CNBC. The best part? He works just 6 hours a week.
It presents a viable opportunity to earn some additional income for very little time.
But vending machine owners making 6 figures are the exception. In its survey, The Hustle found that the average operator only owns about 13 machines that each gross $309 per month. Sometimes more, sometimes less. Throw in those overhead costs from earlier, and an operator earning $5,000 a month in revenue might only take home $2,000. But the draw of earning a passive income, even on a small scale, can be worth it. So it's not surprising the global vending machine market is expected to rise from $18 billion in 2022 to $30 billion by 2027.
I still have a long way to go, but I'm glad that I did start pretty young and that this is something I want to do forever. That's how much I enjoy it.
Americans, we love to stuff our faces. And there's no better place to do it than the all-you-can-eat buffet. From the salad bar, to the carving station, to the dessert trays, all-you-can-eat buffets are a hungry diner's paradise. And there are literally hundreds of them in some states. But how does a restaurant that serves unlimited food actually make money? And is it possible to out-eat an all-you-can-eat buffet? The American-style all-you-can-eat, or ACE, buffet got its start in the 1940s when a Las Vegas hotel publicist named Herb McDonald put out a late-night spread of cold cuts, bread, and cheese. Hotel guests loved it, and his experiment became known as the Buckaroo Buffet, a nod to its $1 price. Restaurant chains like Sizzler and Golden Corral modeled their entire dining experiences on Herb McDonald's concept.
Sizzler's new all-you-can-eat buffet court.
Where do we start?
Owners of Ace Buffets entice diners with a tempting offer, paying a single fixed price for any amount of food you eat, even though most restaurants figure you'll only eat about a pound. A restaurant determines how much to charge you by dividing the average number of customers they get per day by the price they pay for their daily food selection. According to a Hustle analysis, the average buffet costs about $20 a head. But it can cost restaurants 19 of those $20 just to cover overhead, leaving just $1 in profit. Because margins are so slim, buffets rely heavily on high foot traffic. But serving so many people often results in massive amounts of food waste. And in buffet world, food is money. So buffet operators have cooked up a few hacks to survive in a world of door-dashed poke bowls. Step 1, put the cheap filling stuff at the front. One study found that almost 70% of all food people eat comes from the first 3 trays. Suckers. Step 2, use smaller plates. Less space means less waste. Step 3, swap the serving utensils. Use larger spoons for cheap foods like mashed potatoes and small tongs for costlier items like roast beef. And step 4, refill those water glasses. But could it be physically possible to eat enough food to offset the cost of entry at an Ace buffet? The short answer is yes. Even buffets take overeaters into account because they lose money on them. The good news? For every overeater, there's roughly 20 normal eaters who consume a standard amount of food, sometimes less. In which case, buffets recoup the money they lose. And to really keep things under control, some buffets brand themselves as all you care to eat. But the real enemy of buffets isn't the overindulger. It's actually big tech. In a 2019 survey by the National Restaurant Association, consumers report nearly 60% of their restaurant meals were eaten off premises, thanks to the rise of food delivery apps and mobile ordering. Plus, our appetite for endless eating has changed. In 1998, there were 5,000 buffets in the US. In 2018, that number was down to 3,700. With fewer and fewer in business these days, it may seem like the all-you-can-eat buffet is on its way out. But as an American institution of pure gluttony, chances are we'll always be hungry for more. On October 21st, 2022, Taylor Swift dropped her highly anticipated album Midnights and broke Spotify.
There were so many streams, Spotify crashed.
So much excitement, so much hype, it actually crashed Spotify for a little bit.
Taylor Swift is the most prolific artist of our time, if you think about it now.
In just 24 hours, Midnights was streamed more than 184 million times, making it the most streamed album in a single day on the platform. But while it proved to be an instant knockout for Taylor, it's a dagger to thousands of other artists. And that's because of the tricky way musicians get paid by streaming their music on Spotify.
It's so complex and convoluted anyway, you have to write a 50-page frickin' novel to explain how a royalty is paid on a stream.
To buy the average artist a cup of coffee, you'd have to stream their music more than 1,000 times. So why are artists paid so little on a platform that generates more than $11 billion annually? The answer boils down to two baffling payout equations that change every month. As the largest platform in music streaming, Spotify has been on top since the app debuted in 2011. Today, it boasts close to 200 million paid users and more than 80 million songs from 11 million artists. But some of the biggest names in music have a serious bone to pick with the streaming giant, including Taylor Swift. Their beef? Artist payout. On its website, Loud and Clear, Spotify explains that it does not
pay artists or songwriters directly. Instead, Spotify pays the rights holders.
Hold up. Exactly who are these rights holders? Let's take it back to before Spotify was Spotify. Ahead of its launch, CEO Daniel Ek set up a royalty payment structure that agreed to send approximately 67% of revenue from music streams back to rights holders, including record labels, which usually reap the biggest benefits. He also gave 3 of the biggest labels a combined 18% ownership stake in the company.
And that's really how Spotify was allowed to succeed.
It's more about how can we raise our stock price, how can we get dividends back to our shareholders. The artist is the afterthought.
According to Jeff's definitive guide to Spotify royalties, Spotify pays 2 separate royalties to stream a song, one for the recording and one for the composition. In both cases, Spotify takes money out of its monthly net revenue pot to pay the royalty fees it owes record labels and songwriters. But how it distributes that money varies based on who it's paying and how many times their music was streamed on Spotify in a given month compared to the total number of streams on the platform. This is what Spotify calls stream share, and it's usually dominated by big-name artists like Taylor Swift.
So if you have one artist going super viral, it takes up a lot of that oxygen. Each artist now has to contend with Taylor Swift taking up a greater share of the pot that they all share.
Compared to Apple Music and Amazon, Spotify has one of the lowest payout rates in the world of music streaming. And here's where things get even more complicated. Stay with me on this. Record labels get paid for a song recording based on their previously negotiated royalty rate with Spotify, but songwriters can't negotiate royalty rates for their compositions. Take the song I Will Always Love You, recorded by Whitney Houston, written by Dolly Parton. Recording artists like Whitney get paid whatever cut of the deal is outlined in their contracts. But the US government establishes a fixed rate for Dolly's cut.
So this is why artists get They don't have a singular voice, they don't have the lobbying power, and it's so complex combined with a history of exploitation and new goals based on market share. The artists are the roadkill in a Mad Max movie.
In November 2019, music rights holders and distributors in the US earned 0.004 cents in royalties per stream on Spotify, while self-published songwriters earn 0.0005 cents. Despite once claiming it was never built to help artists make a living, Spotify has made more of an effort to help artists monetize their music beyond streaming. They can now link directly to their merchandise and concert ticket sales on the app, and get paid directly by fans via Cash App, aka the artist tip jar. Still, these features may not be enough to convert the many critics of Spotify, from industry insiders to the reigning queen of streaming herself. I'm not going back to school, but I do need more pens, so take these. When was the last time you bought something for just $1 or even $1.25? For me, it was probably a pack of gum like 10 years ago. At one of thousands of dollar stores in the US, George Washington can buy you batteries, picture frames, and condiments, all for a fraction of what they cost at other chain stores.
I mean, I can breathe in the direction of a Walmart and it cost me $40.
But are dollar stores really as wallet-friendly as we think?
Many people believe that it is cost-effective, but in reality, it often is not.
So then, why do we keep shopping at dollar stores? And how do they manage to stay afloat on such teeny tiny sales? Today, there are more dollar stores in the US than CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, and Target locations combined. And there are two chains that dominate the market: Dollar General and Dollar Tree. Just a few months ago, Dollar General announced the opening of its 19,000th store. That's more locations in the US than McDonald's. And despite selling items for as little as $1 a pop, these corporations can generate as much as $30 billion in annual revenue. And that's because dollar store profit margins are relatively high.
Dollar General makes basically 30 cents on the dollar in profit for every, sales dollar, which is more than Walmart achieves.
How is that possible? Dollar stores buy their inventory in enormous bulk quantities, which allows you to buy that pack of birthday candles for just $1, even though they bought it for only 21 cents. Speaking of, commonly shopped items like birthday candles are intentionally placed at the back of the store. By putting staple items here, dollar stores force shoppers to weave through other aisles first, resulting in impulse buys and increasing their grand totals at checkout. According to Numerator, the average Dollar General customer spends $641 a year, while the average Target customer spends nearly twice that amount. So then, it is more cost-effective to shop at dollar stores, right? Take this 1.7 ounce bottle of Pantene shampoo. On a per ounce basis, it's actually more expensive to buy this size for $1.25 than it is to buy it full size and full price somewhere else.
What the dollar stores do in order to keep their prices at $1, or in the case of Dollar Tree, $1.25, is that they pressure their product manufacturers, their wholesalers, to create smaller products for them. So it's really false economy.
Nearly 90% of Americans have visited a dollar store at some point in their lives. So what keeps us coming back for more tiny shampoos?
That's ultimately what it comes down to. I don't have choices to shop elsewhere. I can see how it would be so difficult for a family, for a single mom to make it in this economy right now.
Rebecca Chobat started her YouTube channel Dollar Tree Dinners 2 years ago and has since launched a TikTok account with 1 million followers. Her recipes max out at just $2.58 per person and are exclusively sourced from Dollar Tree stores in her area.
I get messages from several people who say that they're only able to feed themselves or they're only able to feed their families because I taught them how to shop at Dollar Tree in a time when grocery prices are so insanely high.
According to the American Journal of Public Health, dollar stores are now the fastest growing food retailers for homes in the US. And they're especially present in food deserts where access to fresh, affordable food is almost non-existent.
It's clear that they obviously are targeting, for the most part, lower income communities, whether it's a rural community or whether it's an urban neighborhood.
This is a map of food insecurity rates in DeKalb County, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. And this is a heat map of dollar stores in the area. As a state, Georgia has the second highest dollar store count in the U.S. And according to County Commissioner Lorraine Cochran-Johnson, there are 70 in DeKalb County alone, 3 of which are located less than 2 miles apart.
Obviously, there's just one down the road.
Generally a good thing, yeah. They have a lot of things that you could get in there, and it's very convenient because I just live down the street.
It's cheap and convenient.
In a request for comment, the Dollar General Corporation told The Hustle that approximately 75% of Americans live within 5 miles of a Dollar General store. But according to the Institute for Local Self-Reliance, more dollar stores often means less access to fresh produce and groceries.
If you get 2 or 3 of these within sort of a concentrated area, it makes it almost impossible for a full-service grocery store to survive and for a new grocery store to even consider opening.
Dollar General says its stores operate alongside local grocers and claims they are not a grocery store, but still offer components of a nutritious meal.
Buying a can of chicken at $1.25 might not be a good value as opposed to buying a pack of chicken, but for somebody who lives in their car, they don't have means to cook a fresh pack of chicken, so that pre-cooked can of chicken is their only option.
Most dollar store shoppers make less than $40,000 a year. But now, six-figure households are more likely to shop at dollar stores than they were last year. The reason? My dollar is on inflation. Between 2021 and 2022, the purchasing power of Mr. Washington declined about 7.4% due to inflation. And after 35 years of keeping its prices at just $1, Dollar Tree Incorporated announced in 2021 that the majority of its products would now cost $1.25. According to then President and CEO Michael Witynski, the increase in price would give customers access to a broader product selection.
Is to protect that profit margin because things are costing them more.
Something you can still buy for just $1? Greeting cards. I guess you can never have too many.
There's something magical about pumpkins. We eat, drink, and carve them up every year. And there's one place you're guaranteed to find the perfect one: the pumpkin patch. In 2021, the US produced roughly 1.8 billion pounds of pumpkins. But most pumpkin patches are only open from mid-September to mid-November. So how do they stay afloat the other 10 months of the year? Let's start from the ground up. Selling pumpkins at a pumpkin patch is not only great for our Instagrams, it can also turn a pretty good profit. A farmer that sells their pumpkins directly to consumers can bring in 10 times more money than selling them wholesale to big grocery chains. But owning and operating a seasonal enterprise isn't easy. Pumpkin patches rely on year-round luck and strategy to be a smash hit in just a few months' time. Yet the increasing profitability of pumpkins in recent years makes the gourd worth the grind. In 2021, Americans plan to spend a record-breaking $10 billion on Halloween. And according to Axios, 2022 is shaping up to be another big year for the industry. A typical farmer can plant 3,000 jack-o'-lanterns per acre of farmland. But after the harvest, not every pumpkin is sellable. Sometimes only half the pumpkins planted make it to the patch. An acre of sellable pumpkins priced at $4.83 each can produce a rough profit range of $3,000 to $8,000 per acre, depending on the overhead costs of fertilizer, labor, and insurance. It's not a small chunk of change, but a lot has to go right in the months leading up to harvest in order for a successful season to follow. The best time of year to plant pumpkins is from early May through the end of June, although different pumpkins mature at different speeds. Pumpkins are a lot like fashion. What was trendy last year may not be as popular this year, so it pays to plant a variety of unique varieties. Of course, the most popular pumpkin variety is the jack-o'-lantern, which takes more than 100 days to mature. But timing is only half the battle. The other half is far less controllable. Like any crop, pumpkins require optimal weather conditions to make it through the growing season. If it gets too hot, pumpkins can mature too early and show up in August. Too cold and they'll still be green in October. And don't even get me started on what happens when there's too much rain or not enough. Yes, Mother Nature can make or break the growing season, but after the harvest, it's all about business. Most patches establish multiple streams of revenue to maximize seasonal profits, especially urban patches. Mr. Bones is located in Culver City, California, and there's no shortage of photo ops. The cost of admission ranges from $10 to $30 depending on when you go. Further north in Snohomish, Washington, Craven Farm sells a la carte tickets for activities like its $5 hayride and apple cannons. And let's not forget all the opportunities to sell mouth-watering treats like apple cider and pumpkin donuts. Hard to believe the pumpkin was once the food of desperate times. Talk about a plot twist. And as America's obsession with the magical orange fruit continues to grow, the pros of running a profitable patch in just 2 months' time continue to outweigh the cons year-round. This is the Puy de Dôme, an inactive volcano in central France that sits more than 1,400 meters above sea level. It's been a Roman temple, a tourist destination, and one of the hardest stages in the Tour de France, the most famous cycling race in the world.
There are 3 types of stages. You have stages for the sprinters, for the attackers, and for the climbers.
This year, the Puy de Dôme returns after 35 years off the route and is one of 8 mountain stages in the 21-stage tour.
Well, it starts in the beginning already with some serious climbing, and then they immediately go into the Pyrenees. After that, it will be relatively calm, and then they have Puy de Dôme. Then after that, it's relatively calm again, and I think the end is pretty hellish.
But this story isn't about how hard the Tour de France is. It's about the money that's fueled the race's legacy for more than a century.
Money is what, and profit is what motivates every single component of the Tour de France, from the riders to the sponsors to the tour itself. I don't think it's fair to say that that's the only thing that makes the sport work or makes this event work.
So how does an event that's free to the public make enough money to command the world stage every year? And is all that climbing really worth it? Historically, the Tour de France has cashed in a few different ways. Auctioning off stops along the route to the highest bidding cities, charging companies a fee to follow riders in publicity caravans, and allowing local brands to sponsor the tour. But it wasn't until the late 60s that the Tour de France actually became profitable thanks to its current owner, the Amaury Sports Organization, or ASO.
They have been kind of this focus of criticism about the role of money in sport ever since they were founded.
While TV broadcasting rights now make up the largest piece of the tour's revenue, town hosting fees and publicity caravans still bring in a significant chunk of change, with some brands paying up to $700,000 to be one of the more than 200 cars following the peloton. No, not that peloton. That peloton. But that's nothing compared to what some companies pay to sponsor entire teams.
I know that our budget during 1997 and 1998 was probably under $5 million, would seem quite small in today's world.
This is Marty Jemison, a professional cyclist from Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 2-time rider for the US in the Tour de France. In the late 90s, the team's title sponsor was the United States Postal Service.
I also did hear that, the Postal Service had never spent marketing dollars anywhere that was as successful as the dollars they spent with the team.
Teams that compete in the Tour rely almost exclusively on title sponsors for funding, with some recent budgets exceeding $50 million. In return, title sponsors get to name the team and put their logo on everything, most importantly, on jerseys. At times, riders will even break away from the peloton just to give their sponsors more airtime.
The live cameras, helicopters over their heads, and then the motorcycle cameras. So they can be on TV for hours. The rider will turn themselves inside out to keep that sponsor on the television screen.
Since the Tour was founded in 1903, sponsors and riders have been banding together to secure a Tour de France win.
Henri Desgrange envisioned this as being an individual's race, where the strongest cyclist over 3 weeks would win the Tour. But in practice, what really happened was that there were these stables of riders who were all sponsored by the same people, and so they colluded unofficially with each other to help a few of the big stars win.
Today, the rider who wins the Tour with the fastest overall time walks away with the iconic yellow jersey and more than $500,000 in cash prizes, while the slowest riders take home much less.
The teams that perform worst in the Tour de France come out of that tour with like a few $1,000 in prize money. And then you've been riding through hell for 3 weeks.
As for the ASO, they give away more than $2 million in cash prizes, but are notoriously secretive about how much money they take in from the tour. When we reached out, a spokesperson told us that the organization does not communicate on the topic of business. But according to sources The Hustle spoke with in 2020, it's estimated that the tour's total revenue ranges from $60 to $150 million. And based on data collected in the last decade, the ASO's tour profits could range roughly from $12 to $30 million.
Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, and maybe they're making even more money. But the thing is, it's not always about the money.
That's especially true for cyclists, who often get the short end of the stick when it comes to benefiting from the sport's business model. But it seems the Tour de France will always attract the world's top riders, for richer or poorer.
That is your utopia, is to be at the most challenging event on the planet. That is everything.
The mouth-watering role of the gas station hot dog. Mwah. You may see it as a stomachache waiting to happen. But what if I told you that this $2 marvel is the saving grace of most gas station owners, especially when the price of gas goes up? Because ironically, most gas stations make literal pennies from selling their core product. So how do they stay in business and stay relevant in an economy that favors going electric? Allow me to pump some insight. Here's the problem. Making gas is expensive. It starts as crude oil sourced in states like Texas and North Dakota, then gets shipped to refineries where it's processed into gasoline. By the time it reaches the pump, the profit is only a fraction of the price listed on the sign. There's a lot of variance in how much station owners make on gas, but on average, the markup on a gallon is around 30 cents. After accounting for the overhead costs of maintenance, credit card fees, and theft, the average profit per gallon is just 5 to 7 cents. Let's say your local station makes 5 cents off a gallon of gas. Even if they sell 4,000 gallons in a day, they're still only taking home $200. That's a lower profit margin than grocery stores, one of the lowest margin businesses. So why don't they just raise their prices? Well, have you ever wondered why gas stations are almost always located right across the street from one another? Each station wants to be where the most drivers are, like freeway exits and drive-thrus, so raising prices often means losing customers, and that loss is felt even more in a tough economy. Yep, they hate this inflation crap as much as the rest of us. Oh, inflation. So how do they stay in business? It may surprise you to learn that the lighters, candy, even that questionable sushi sold at gas station convenience stores bring in 70% of total profits. According to a study conducted by the National Association of Convenience Stores, 44% of gas station customers go inside. Among them, 1 in 3 ends up indulging in some kind of treat. And that conversion rate is crucial because gas stations are a dying breed. In 1995, there were close to 200,000 gas stations in the US. Today, there are only about 115,000. Some have gone away thanks to the boom of electric vehicles, but others have stayed relevant by installing costly EV charging units. So whether you're filling your tank or charging your Tesla, what drives a gas station's business has little to do with fueling your car. It's that quick trip inside their convenience store that makes all the difference, where those $2 hot dogs are as much a snack as a secret weapon. On November 6, 2022, Carnival's giant new Celebration cruise ship embarked on its maiden voyage from Europe to Miami. Along the way, it raised the flag of the Bahamas, making it one of roughly 100 cruise ships registered to the island nation. For centuries, ships have flown the flags of other countries, and some cruise lines select countries for their ships with one thing in mind: money.
They have millions of American passengers, but when you look at the numbers behind these companies, it's pretty astonishing to learn the extent to which they go to avoid paying into the US tax system.
On top of that, the industry's major players make billions through a laundry list of onboard secrets, most of which are hidden in plain sight. As of December 2022, there were roughly 300 cruise ships in operation around the world. Those 300 ships host over 30 million passengers every year. Out of all of these monster ocean liners, Carnival Celebration ranks among the largest, with enough rooms to accommodate a small American town. On board, passengers can choose from more than 20 restaurants, 2 of which were co-created with the mayor of Flavortown himself, Guy Fieri. Grabbing a bite at Guy's Burger Joint is included in the price of a ticket, while dining at his Pig and Anchor restaurant is not.
A typical cruise ship is probably earning about $100 net profit per passenger per day just from onboard spending. So when I say, they're artful in being able to get their hands in people's pockets, it's almost an understatement.
Our breakdown found that for a pre-pandemic 7-day cruise in 2018, the average passenger spent $1,060 on a ticket and $650 on board. After subtracting overhead costs, a ship made out with roughly $291 in net profit per passenger per cruise. That's higher than the profit margin of global hotel chain Hilton. And here's where those flags come into play. According to international maritime law, a ship must prove it has a genuine link to its country of registry. But when it comes to cruise ships, not everyone is convinced that link is so genuine.
Well, a lot of people say that's actually bullshit. The benefits that these countries get from the cruise lines are actually fairly insignificant and nominal compared to the revenue that the cruise lines make off of these relationships.
Take the Carnival Corporation, for example. Since its founding in 1972, Carnival has been incorporated in the Republic of Panama and headquartered in Miami, Florida. But ships like the Celebration fly the flag of the Bahamas. Why? Carnival tells us it's because the Bahamas has the world's leading registry for vessels in the cruise industry, and it's where their ships spend the most time. But critics of the cruise industry argue that foreign flags are flown to avoid paying millions of dollars in U.S. taxes.
It's purely an economic arrangement. You give the Panamanian government X millions of dollars and they give you the flag and everybody's happy.
Under an obscure century-old section of the U.S. tax code, the earnings derived from foreign incorporated vessels remain tax-free in the U.S. So basically, the law incentivizes foreign registration and reduces the amount of taxes cruise ships are required to pay. Carnival told The Hustle that in 2019, it paid the majority of its $71 million in federal corporate taxes to the U.S. government. But according to NBC, without a legal tax exemption, it would have paid closer to $600 million. The irony? Cruise Radio estimates that cruise lines typically pay a lower federal corporate tax rate than the U.S. corporate tax rate of 21%. And yet, still benefit from services funded by taxpayer dollars, especially when ship happens. When the Carnival Splendor's engine caught fire off the coast of San Diego in 2010, it required $3.4 million in government recovery aid.
The cost for a person overboard could be up to a couple of $1 million when cruise ships have lost power and gone adrift at sea. Those recoveries have been in millions of dollars, and medical emergencies.
Dozens of new cases confirmed today. A growing crisis, rather, aboard cruise ships. Penned up in quarantine, lied to by cruise officials.
It's total lockdown.
At the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, cruise stocks plummeted more than 60% in just 3 months, and 2020 quickly became the worst year on record for the industry. Without business ties to the U.S. government, most cruise lines weren't eligible for federal stimulus, so they turned to the American taxpayer again.
We ask you to book a future Princess cruise to your dream destination as a sign of encouragement for our team.
I actually called Norwegian's cruise booking hotline in March of 2020, and I asked them, is it safe to go on a cruise ship right now? And a salesperson told me that coronavirus didn't exist in tropical climates, which, is not true.
But the economic tides may soon be turning in favor of cruise lines. In August 2022, Bloomberg reported that Carnival cruise bookings nearly doubled, and the leading global cruise industry trade group expects demand for cruises to surpass pre-COVID levels by the end of 2023. Whether or not the cruise industry sinks or swims, it's unlikely its major players will change their methods for making a quick buck, both on board and on the high seas.
There's an old Broadway saying that goes, you can't make a living, but you can make a killing. But when a show appears to be on the verge of flopping, sometimes it kills its leading lady. When the musical revival of Funny Girl opened at the August Wilson Theater, actress Beanie Feldstein stepped into the starring role. But just 4 months and a handful of scathing reviews later, Feldstein prematurely took her final bow. And just weeks later, the production announced her replacement, actress Lea Michele. According to Variety, the average ticket during Feldstein's run sold for about $100. Michelle's opening week charged $2,500 for the best seats in the house and $570 for the worst. Casting strong leads isn't the only thing that can make or break a show's financial success. So what goes into producing a Broadway hit? And are Broadway shows really as profitable as they appear? Theatrical performances have been happening on Broadway in New York City since before the Revolutionary War. That one from Hamilton. Today, Broadway encompasses 41 theaters in Midtown Manhattan, each with 500 seats or more. Pre-COVID, Broadway grossed nearly $2 billion during the 2018-2019 season. Variety called it a new golden age. Then, COVID hit, dimming Broadway's lights for a full 18 months. And since its reopening in September 2021, profits have barely scraped the $1 billion mark.
There are lots of different ways to be part of the business of Broadway and lots of different ways to make or lose money.
This is Dr. Derek Miller, a professor, theater historian, and principal investigator of the Visualizing Broadway project.
Broadway is just complex enough to be totally fascinating and just small enough to be at least feel a little graspable, a little bit like one can actually sort of get one's arms around it.
To understand how Broadway has endured crises like COVID and the Great Depression, you have to understand how it makes money. On-Broadway productions kick off like any other business, with money from investors. They typically give producers between $25,000 and $50,000 each to cover a show's upfront costs. For musicals, that number is about $10 to $20 million, or $70 million if you're Spider-Man. Then comes sorting out the weekly production budget. The biggest costs are salaries and theater expenses. Keep in mind, most shows run 6 days a week with only one dark day.
You almost never see shows performing on Mondays, but some shows have started to change that. They're saying, hey, look, we don't have any competition. Maybe Monday's a good night to try to run this production. We can catch a certain kind of audience.
During Broadway's Golden Age season, audience numbers peaked at nearly 14.8 million people, a dream for theater owners. They take home 5 to 7% of the weekly box office gross, plus an additional flat fee of $10,000 to $20,000. According to Variety, Lea Michele's opening week of Funny Girl grossed $2 million, breaking box office records for the August Wilson Theater. But what about when a show underperforms? To protect themselves financially, theater owners and producers usually set up something called a stop clause.
The stop clause fundamentally protects the producers from being evicted as long as they're running above the stop clause. The theater says if you don't make X amount of the box office potential for 2 weeks in a row, then we can throw you out.
When Beetlejuice the Musical reportedly failed to meet its ticket revenue quota for 2 consecutive weeks in 2019, it was evicted from the Winter Garden Theater. Its replacement, The Music Man, starring A-list actor Hugh Jackman. According to Broadway producer Ken Davenport, only 20% of producers and investors recoup the money they invest in a show. And Funny Girl just might make the cut before it closes this September. Even rarer are the breakout successes of new musicals like Hamilton. The New York Times reported that it cost $12.5 million up front to produce the show. Less than a year into its run, it had fully recouped every penny. The biggest piece of the recouping equation is ticket sales. The goal is to sell enough tickets at a high enough price to exceed the weekly operating costs of production. Shows today use something called dynamic pricing, which means they adjust the price for almost every seat in the house based on demand, a tactic also used by airlines.
So fundamentally, what producers need to understand is the relationship between what it's going to cost them weekly to perform the show and the potential income they can earn at the theater.
In Lea Michele's case, that number is still in the high 200s and could go even higher as the show nears close, which is most likely why she's the face of Funny Girl.
Shows change stars for all kinds of reasons. The number one reason is that the star is not doing this thing a star should do, which is to attract audiences to a production.
And like that other Broadway saying goes, that's showbiz. This is an Airbus A350. It's roughly the length of a football field and holds more than 300 passengers. And this is me, the anxious traveler in seat 23K. Most of us are all too familiar with the woes of modern-day air travel, especially post-COVID. It's a far cry from how the industry actually started out. Roll tape.
Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard the spacious cabin. Attractively decorated, air-conditioned, but draft-free.
And, you know, it was kind of an affair to go flying. Now it's more like trying to avoid the pain points of flying.
Pain points like long lines, longer delays, and shoving your appropriately sized carry-on luggage into the overhead compartment. According to the Federal Aviation Administration, nearly 3 million people fly in and out of U.S. airports every day. But not every passenger generates revenue for the more than $750 billion global airline industry.
Airlines actually make very little money, if any money, off of actually flying. In many cases, they actually lose money on that physical ticket that you've purchased.
But there is one ticket that does help airlines land a profit. So which one is it? And which ticket is the best value for your money? Most airlines offer 4 classes of seating: economy, premium economy, business, and first class. And a growing demand for perks like comfier seats has major U.S. airlines like American and Delta expanding their higher price seating offers by 25 to 75%. The reason? COVID gave leisure travelers a chance to experience life at the front of the plane. Now, as airlines look to recoup their losses post-COVID, having extra legroom will cost you. On average, Americans are paying almost 20% more for airfare in 2023. The difference in price between my premium economy ticket and a business class ticket on my 10-hour, where did I go? On my 10-hour flight from LAX to London Heathrow was about $700. And it's a similar price breakdown for domestic flights too. A recent sample round-trip ticket from New York to Los Angeles on 3 major airlines started at about $300 for economy, $900 for premium economy, and $1,200 for business.
There's a lot of separation between these classes, and airlines will do basically anything to try to extract either more money or more miles from you, right? And they sort of guilt you into it.
Airlines use something called dynamic pricing to sell seats. It's a strategy where businesses adjust the prices for their offerings to account for changing demand.
Of course, the fare goes up, but it's also not uncommon to see very last-minute tickets, let's say even for tonight or tomorrow, drop really low because the airline says, okay, we've got X amount of seats left over. We're likely not going to sell it for a higher price. Let's offer it for something.
Airlines aim to fill 100% of the seats on their aircrafts to turn a profit, or at least 70% to break even, as reported by Forbes during the pandemic. But some seats are more important to fill than others. So which class of seating generates the most revenue? If you answered C, first class, you're wrong. It's actually those slightly less bougie business flyers that generate the most profits on long-haul flights like mine. Still jet-lagged. And I lost my neck pillow. Again. Columbia Business School professor Jeffrey Heel told The Hustle that one business traveler pays for 5 to 6 economy travelers. So what exactly makes business class best in class for most airlines? Airlines measure profit per square foot, and the average business class seat takes up 10 square feet of space according to upgraded points. Compared to economy and premium economy, they're only 30% roomier, yet they can cost 3 times as much. Some of the biggest selling points, along with more space, are faster check-in, airport lounge access, and of course, better food and drinks. Take business flyers on British Airways. On some flights, they even enjoy high tea in the afternoon. It's very fancy. A higher level of service up here means airlines can charge 3 to 5 times more money for these seats to cover their overhead, both on board and behind the scenes. According to Forrester Research, if U.S. airlines don't make improvements to their customer experience, they risk forfeiting an average of $1.4 billion in annual revenue. That cash is largely generated by loyalty programs. As Business Traveler reports, they're the secret cash cow of the airline industry, and in some cases are valued higher than the airline itself.
I am very pro-status. I happen to have American top-tier status. Just a few days ago, my parents were flying out to Las Vegas. Their flight canceled. It was on American, so of course I immediately call American, and I got them a seat within 5 minutes of that cancellation.
Major airlines in the U.S. aren't the only ones capitalizing on their high-spending business flyers. Entire business-only boutique airlines are emerging worldwide, like France's La Compagnie and the Maldives Beyond. It's a concept not far from the golden age of travel, when everyone on board got the same level of service. But while you might think selling only business class seats could lead to higher profits, most single-class airlines tend to fail.
It's not like United, where they've got crew all around the country, different bases, different hubs. With a smaller airline like that, you may be the only one flying that day. And so, for them to recover, it's going to be a lot harder.
Whichever airline you choose to fly or class of seating you choose to buy, airfare in general is 17% more expensive than it was a year ago. So which seat is really worth your money and worth losing your neck pillow?
It's entirely up to you. I like to sit in first class, don't we all? So I'll find ways to, make that happen. If you're smart enough, you can really find good fares, good opportunities to upgrade. I have a friend, his sort of mantra is either you turn left into the premium cabin or you turn around and get off the plane.
O Christmas tree, O Christmas tree, how profitable are thy branches? At an average price of $78 each, Christmas trees make up a $2 billion a year business. But it isn't as holly jolly as it sounds, because for every year trees are sold, it takes about 9 more years to grow them all over again. Throw in the growth of the artificial tree business, and farmers are looking at one blue Christmas. So how do they recoup the money they miss out on while their trees flourish? And can they compete against the increasingly popular fake tree? Every year, about 25 million Christmas trees are sold in the US. But before we're rocking around our Christmas trees at home, Christmas tree farmers are waiting. Because almost all varieties of the Christmas tree follow the same general production cycle. After being purchased as a seedling, a single tree spends 2 years in the nursery, then gets planted in its own 6x6 plot of land where it grows and grows and grows for almost a decade until it finally reaches a mature 6 feet. That's the same amount of time it takes to become a licensed physician. And during that time, it's a bit of a financial black hole for farmers because land, labor, and equipment is expensive. And a lot can happen during those 10 revolutions around the sun. But if all good things really do come to those who wait, then Christmas tree farming is no exception. In 2019, the Washington Post reported that 98% of all real Christmas trees on the market came from tree farms. But it all depends on what things will look like 10 years out. Because planting too many trees could flood the market, while planting too few could cause a shortage. Like during the 2008 recession, when struggling farmers dipped below their usual planting quota. 8 years later, prices spiked and have trended upward ever since. But when the waiting game is over and the time comes to finally sell, farmers can either go with U-Cut, which allows the public to cut down their own trees, or wholesale, which supplies the tree lots that pop up right after Thanksgiving. Farmers typically earn $8 to $10 per tree. That's $1 per tree per year of growth. Still, striking a wholesale deal with a major retailer like the Home Depot could net 7 figures. And while that's great for farmers, once the retailer has the trees, it typically marks them up by 100% or more, a price hike that inspires some holiday shoppers to buy their trees in a box. Behold the artificial Christmas tree. Looks like a tree, smells like plastic. But their public appeal only seems to keep growing. In 2019, Americans bought nearly the same amount of artificial trees as real trees. Unlike the real thing, fake trees take minutes to manufacture and can sometimes retail for more. And while the faux fur market has made big gains in recent years, it's unlikely to stop Christmas tree farmers from taking their own 10-year journey. Because, according to the purists, you just can't beat the real thing. Every year, Americans spend billions of dollars on gift cards. And every year, billions of dollars worth of gift cards go unspent. Gift cards are a cash equivalent that can be used at nearly any store or restaurant. For the gift giver, it's a hassle-free, one-stop shopping experience. And for the gift opener, it's one less present to fake being excited about. But when a gift card goes unused, there's only one winner: the companies that sell the cards. Get in, losers, we're not going shopping. There are countless reasons why gift cards go unused. They expire, get lost, or we don't like the restaurant or retailer that issued them. I'm no stranger to unused gift cards. I have an entirely separate wallet for my collection. According to an August 2022 survey, 47% of US adults say they have at least one unused gift card, voucher, or store credit. That adds up to $21 billion nationwide. Although many people say they plan to spend the money, around 6% of gift cards are never used, according to a study by Anduro Marketing. Me? I still have fully loaded gift cards from my Sweet 16. But the fact is, if you don't use them, you better prepare to lose them. Between 2006 and 2018, gift card sales skyrocketed. In 2018 alone, those sales totaled $160 billion. This entire chart represents $1 trillion of sales. And depending on where you live, certain states have laws that allow gift cards to incur inactivity fees if they aren't used within 12 months. These fees often range from $2 to $5 per month, which can quickly eat up your balance. Lucky for me, it's illegal to charge these types of fees in California. So this has yet to become a gift card graveyard. But where does the money go when it's left unused? When you buy a gift card, you essentially exchange cash for credit that can be used later. Big companies like Cheesecake Factory don't count that money as revenue until your next shopping spree. Eating spree. And because most gift cards can't expire for 5 years under federal law, companies have to plan for the possibility that they may not be redeemed until way into the future. And until that day comes, those unused balances are flagged as liabilities, often amounting to massive sums of money. But after a certain amount of time, the law allows companies to estimate the amount of gift card money that will never be redeemed. Those sums are called breakage income, and they're essentially free cash for the company. To put it into perspective, the money that Starbucks earned in breakage income in 2017 could have covered 57 million cups of coffee. Despite this, retailers actually make more money when consumers spend their gift cards. The reason? Customers typically feel inclined to spend more than the amount they were gifted. They also tend to buy items at full price. Still, if you're like me and you're having trouble spending your cards, you should know there's an entire ecosystem of sites where gift cards can be exchanged for cash up to 90% of their value. Bye-bye, plastic purgatory.
Today, I am shopping for Thanksgiving dinner. It's the most popular holiday in the US, and yet some Americans are opting to skip it. Why? Take a look at this graph. It tracks the average cost of our Thanksgiving dinners over the last 20 years. As expected, the price has steadily increased, 3% on average every year since 2003. Then it seemed to almost level out until the pandemic hit in 2020. But what happened here in 2022? When costs increased by a record 20%.
We really had a convergence of various factors that kind of came together and compounded each other, resulting in some of the highest price increases that we've seen in a generation.
If I were a dinner roll, where would I be? So will this year's grand total top out at another all-time high? And why is it costing us so much more to enjoy Thanksgiving? The price of our Thanksgiving meals gets called into question every year, with media outlets warning of skyrocketing prices, especially ahead of the holidays.
Food prices are high. This year's Thanksgiving dinner will cost you more.
Inflation tends to creep prices up every year.
And with droughts, changes in consumer demand, and fuel costs impacting us more in recent years, food prices are becoming even more volatile too. Ironically, the first Thanksgiving in 1621 was held to celebrate the abundant harvest that year. Ooh, cute dog. Now it's a window into some of the biggest problems facing the American economy. Problems like supply chain issues and labor shortages.
Generally speaking, price increases for food at the grocery store is around 1 to 2% from year over year. But over the past 3 years, we have seen a significant departure from that average. We reached double-digit price increases in August of last year. And this is because there are a lot of factors that have affected both the supply and the demand for food.
Over the last decade, the cost of our Thanksgiving meal rarely exceeded $50 to feed 10 people. But in 2022, it shot up to $64 total. So what does that actually look like? Sides like cranberries, sweet potatoes, stuffing, and rolls average between $3 to $4 for what you'd purchase in store. And if you want to talk turkey, that'll set you back almost $30. Okay, so here's the deal. I already have a lot of what I need to make Thanksgiving dinner at home in my pantry and fridge. Things like butter, milk, eggs, etc. But the things I don't have, I'm going to shop for today and then compare the prices of those items to what they cost last year. This year, I'm sticking with the classics. Here's what's on my list. For sides, we have sweet potatoes, green bean casserole, cranberries, stuffing, and dinner rolls. For dessert, you either love it or hate it. It's gotta be pumpkin pie. And of course, the main event, the turkey. Sorry guys. A key factor in the cost of last year's Thanksgiving dinner was grain.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine sent commodity prices surging to record highs. The price of wheat, the price of corn, other grains, which translates into higher feed costs.
When you buy a turkey at the store, the average weight is about 15 pounds. Back on the farm, it takes about 3 pounds of feed for one turkey to gain 1 pound. Multiply that by the estimated 46 million turkeys we eat each Thanksgiving in the US, and you're looking at 2 billion pounds of feed needed for the holiday spread. To make matters worse, the high-path avian influenza, aka bird flu outbreak of 2022, drove the price of the bird up by 73%. In 2023, the average price for a 16-pound turkey is $27.35, a nearly 6% decrease from last year. Still, how are consumers coping in the aftermath of record inflation? Shopping for food at more affordable stores is one way. Dollar stores are now the fastest growing food retailers for homes in the US. Skipping Thanksgiving altogether is another option. 1 in 4 Americans said they were bowing out on the holiday to save money in 2022.
The poorest 20% of American households spend about a third of their disposable income on food, while the average household spends roughly 12% of their income on food. So it's these low-income households are the ones that are having to make real adjustments in order to put food on the Thanksgiving table. And we're all feeling it, but it's hitting them the hardest.
So what about this year? Will we be carving turkeys or carrying takeout? Okay, so far things in my cart are about the same, if not a little more expensive than they were last year. The only thing that isn't, this guy, which also happens to be my favorite side. But then again, I do live in one of the most expensive cities in the country. According to the American Farm Bureau Federation, 2023's Thanksgiving dinner for 10 comes in at $61.17, almost $3 cheaper than last year. As for my grand total, about $50 for 6 people, which isn't bad. But I definitely spent the most on the fresh produce, which I probably could have bought for cheaper if it were canned. Some other tips to help you save money on your next holiday meal?
Shop around, look for the best deals. Don't go shopping when you're hungry. And then you can get creative. You can host a type of potluck Thanksgiving meal, have people contribute a dish that you don't have to bear all the costs of preparing the meal.
Whatever your Thanksgiving dinner looks like or costs this year, remember to enjoy it with the people you love the most. And now we cook. Happy Thanksgiving! Every year around the holidays, our mailboxes are flooded with cards that look like this and this and this. Since the first holiday card was sent back in 1843, the greeting card industry has exploded. Today, it's worth $6.9 billion in the US. And according to Hallmark, we send over 1 billion Christmas cards every year, which may sound like a lot, but it's actually 1 billion fewer than we sent a few decades ago. I end up with a stack of holiday cards every year that are as thick as this 450-page book, which I still need to read. But what does it really cost to buy and send hundreds of holiday cards in 2023? And in a world of e-cards and social media posts, why do people still bother to send them at all? As a market, North America dominates the greeting card game. According to the design marketplace company Minted, most people send 50 to 100 cards each. Others send hundreds more.
I'm thinking about sending over 350. So 350 to 500 cards I will send out.
Every year, Raven Wolf sends hundreds of holiday cards to total strangers.
And it always brought up their spirits. So I started doing it more and more and more each year. And yes, it costs a lot of money now, but I still do it. I wasn't going to do it this year. I said, I can't do it. And I'm doing it.
In 2014, Time labeled Christmas cards America's first social media. And in 2021, the Washington Post reported that millennials were embracing the tradition as a throwback gesture. As a millennial myself, I'll admit I'm a sucker for sending and receiving holiday cards. And most of the ones I get include a photo of my loved ones dressed in matching outfits. You guys are adorable. Taken by a professional photographer.
I'm here in Dallas, Texas at the Mustard Seed Photo Studio. I have some of my Christmas minis today, so let's go inside the studio and check out the space.
This is Melissa McGowan, a professional photographer based in Dallas, Texas. In 2020, she ditched her career as a sports coordinator and made photography her full-time job.
People will pay, $315 for it, $275 for a 15-minute session, and I'm like, at first when I started all this, I was like, no one's gonna do that. No one's gonna pay me that much money. And they keep paying me and I keep raising my prices.
On average, Melissa's clients spend anywhere from $200 to $800 for one of her 15-minute holiday mini sessions. That's depending on what extras they order. The package includes an in-studio photo shoot complete with holiday backdrop, sets, and props, a choice of 8 digital prints complete with editing done by Melissa herself, and the option to purchase more photos if desired. She snaps close to 500 photos in a single 15-minute session and does as many as 8 of them back to back.
I can rack up almost 2,500 in just a day if I wanted to within a 2-hour time frame. And so from there, you can do multiple mini sessions throughout the whole entire Christmas season. I'm pretty much already booked in August for November and December dates.
On average, photographers based in the US charge $100 to $250 per hour, depending on their skill level. But when it comes to holiday photography, you'll likely spend more for the opportunity to pose in front of a winter wonderland. I tried my best. That's because it costs photographers like Melissa anywhere from $60 to $250 just to rent out a studio space for 1 hour.
I'll spend maybe about $1,000 or so looking at studios, trying to pick the best one that I think my clientele would love, because a lot of my clients, they love the glamour. So I'll try to find those studios that do offer that type of look.
But capturing the perfect picture is just one part of the holiday card equation. Next comes designing the physical card. On platforms like Shutterfly, selecting one of their design templates can cost you anywhere from 70 cents to $1.50 per card. A cheaper but less personalized option is to buy cards in bulk.
They're cheap, kind of cheaper in price, where there are like 40 of them in there for $6, which is great.
When it's finally time to mail your cards, the expenses keep coming. In 2023, it'll cost you 66 cents to post one card. And if you're waiting till 2024 to send New Year's cards, prepare for another hike. So what's the grand total? Well, if you spend $300 on professional photos, another $150 on designing and printing 100 cards, and 66 cents on sending each one, you're looking at roughly $516 to wish family and friends happy holidays. Expensive holidays. It's more like it. Unsurprisingly, we're sending fewer cards than we used to, and not just because it's ridiculously expensive. A study by Exeter University found that sending 1.3 billion holiday cards emits as much CO2 as charging 22 billion smartphones. And with most of us eventually tossing those cards in the trash, guilty. The popularity of sending e-cards is soaring. But how is the shift to digital greetings impacting business for photographers like Melissa?
To create an e-card, you have to really set yourself apart from the other powerhouse companies that are already out there. So it's all about like knowing how to design and how to do your own kind of layout to create the best e-card that you can for your clients. It would be easier if you created a package for that. So it's definitely something I would consider.
As for Raven, she's sending the real thing.
I want to give people that holiday cheer. I don't like to receive. I like to give. That's what I do. I just want them to be happy.
1 down, 99 to go.